How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, September 20th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Sunday, September 19th. And of course, I'm going just to give a snapshot of where we are at this year in sports. The MLB season is nearing its end as teams are starting to qualify and disqualify for playoff contention. At the same time, the NFL season second week just finished yesterday as college football just got started as well. It seems as though the WNBA playoffs are going to start on the 23rd, which is just right around the corner, just around the time and also within the next few weeks, the NHL season and the the NBA seasons are about to pick up really soon. At the same time, in the soccer leagues, we are about to enter domestic cups. Because Champions League is taking a week off, so these middle of the week games are really going to be designated for those cups in those various leagues, and I'll get into that in a moment. But first, looking out into what was going on yesterday in the MLB, the Washington Nationals hosted the Colorado Rockies, and they were able to pull off a 3-0 shutout at home. For the Colorado Rockies, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, John Gray. He would allow 2 earned runs and 3 hits in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 5. With this loss, he's 8-11 on the season. In the Rockies batting lineup, their elite right fielder, Charlie Blackmon, went 2 for 3, and their elite shortstop, Trevor Story, went 2 for 4. For the Washington Nationals, the start was given, and the win were given to Paolo Espino. Espino allowed no earned runs and 3 hits in 5.2 innings pitched. He would strike out 7 before getting pulled in the 6th inning, and with this win, he's now 5-5. The save would go to the Nats closer for the day, Kyle Finnegan. Finnegan would allow no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out a batter. This would be his 10th save of the season. In the Nats batting lineup, their first baseman, Josh Bell, went 2 for 2 with a run on the day. Their elite right fielder, Juan Soto, went 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he had his 26th home run of the season. And then their left fielder, Yadiel Hernandez, would end up going 2 for 4 with an RBI. With this win, the Washington Nationals are now 61-88. They are eliminated from playoff contention as they have won 3 of their last 10 games, and they now sit 17 games behind the division-leading Atlanta Braves. They are one of 4 teams in the National League who have been eliminated from playoff contention alongside the Miami Marlins, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Arizona Diamondbacks. With this loss, the Colorado Rockies are now 70-79. That is the 4th best record in the National League West. They've lost only 3 of their last 10 games. They currently sit 26.5 games behind the San Francisco Giants in the division as they are still barely alive in the playoff hunt. Jumping out to the Bronx, the New York Yankees hosted the Cleveland Indians. The Indians would end up beating the Yankees 11-1. And for the Yankees in this matchup, the loss would go to their elite starting pitcher, Garrett Cole. He allowed 7 earned runs and 10 hits in 5.2 innings pitched. He would strike out 7 on the day, and with this loss, he's 15-8. In the Yankees batting lineup, their elite third baseman, DJ LeMahieu, went 2 for 4. Their first baseman, Anthony Rizzo, went 2 for 4 as well. Also, their shortstop, Gio Urshela, went 2 for 3 with an RBI and a run as he had his 13th home run of the year. For the Cleveland Indians, the win went to their starting pitcher, Eli Morgan. He allowed 1 earned run and 6 innings pitched as he struck out 3. With his win, he's 3-7 on the year. In the Indians batting lineup, their elite designated hitter, Jose Ramirez, went 4 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 4 runs. He would go on to hit his 35th home run of the season. Their right fielder, Harold Ramirez, would go 2 for 2 with 4 RBIs and a run. And also their third baseman, Yu Chang, went 3 for 5 with an RBI and a run as well. Their catcher for the day, Roberto Perez, would end up going 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run. Perez would hit his 7th home run of the year. And then the Indian shortstop, Andres Jimenez, would end up going 2 for 5 with a run on the day. With this win, the Cleveland Indians are 73-74. That is currently the second best record in the American League Central. They've won their last 2 games, and they've won 5 of their last 10. They currently sit 11 games behind the Chicago White Sox at this moment. And with this loss, the New York Yankees are now 83-67. That is the 4th best record in the American League East, as they've lost their last 2 games. They've lost 5 of their last 10. At the moment, they sit 9 games behind behind the American League leading Tampa Bay Rays in the division, and they are also sitting a game and a half behind the Toronto Blue Jays, who are holding on to that second American League wildcard spot. At the moment, the Yankees are still the first team on the outside of the American League playoff picture looking in. Speaking of the Blue Jays, the Toronto Blue Jays hosted the Minnesota Twins, and they were able to pull off a 5-3 win at home after scoring all 5 of their runs in the first inning. For Minnesota, the loss would go to their starting pitcher for the day, Luke Farrell. Luke Farrell would allow 5 earned runs in 1 inning pitch as he struck out a batter. The rest of the Twins pitchers would not allow a single run all game. But with this loss, Farrell is 1-1 on the season. In the Twins batting lineup, nobody on the team would finish with more than 1 hit, as their catcher, as the Minnesota Twins catcher, Ben Rortvedt would end up going 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 3rd home run of the year. For the Toronto Blue Jays, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Jose Barrios. He allowed 3 earned runs and 4 hits in 6.2 innings pitched as he struck out 6. With this win, he's now 12-8 on the season, and the save would end up going to their closer, Jordan Romano. Romano allowed no earned runs in the 9th inning as he would go on to strike out a batter. With this save, he now has 19 on the season. In the Toronto Blue Jays batting lineup, their second baseman, Marcus Semien, would end up going 2 for 3 with a run. Their elite first baseman, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., would go 3 for 4 with an RBI and a run for himself. Their all-star shortstop, Bo Bichette, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he would go on to hit his 26th home run of the year. And their left fielder, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., would go 2 for 4 with an RBI. With this win, the Toronto Blue Jays are now 84-65. That is the 3rd best record in the American League East. They've won their last 2 games, and they've won 7 of their last 10 games. They currently trail the Tampa Bay Rays by 7.5 games in the division as they are holding on to that second American League wildcard spot. They currently sit 1 game behind the Boston Red Sox for holding on to that first wildcard spot. They both have 65 losses, but the Red Sox have 2 more wins than the Blue Jays. And right now, the Blue Jays are sitting a game and a half ahead of the New York Yankees, who are the first team on the outside of the playoff picture looking in, who also just happen to be the 4th-ranked team in their division. With this loss, the Minnesota Twins are now 65-85. They have now lost their last 2 games. They've lost 7 of their last 10, trailing the Chicago White Sox by 20.5 games in the division. They are one of 4 teams in the American League who are eliminated from playoff contention, alongside the Kansas City Royals, the Texas Rangers, and the Baltimore Orioles. Jumping out to Boston, speaking of the Orioles, the Red Sox hosted Baltimore, and they were able to pull off an 8-6 win at home. Baltimore would take a 6-5 lead at the top in the top of the 7th inning, but then Yadiel Hernandez would tie the game for Boston. Hunter Renfroe would double it he would give the Red Sox the lead with an RBI double, and Rafael Devers' RBI single would give the Red Sox their 8th run in the last run they'd have for the game. For the Baltimore Orioles, the start was given to Alexander Wells. Alexander Wells would allow 5 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 3. The loss would go to the Orioles' second relief pitcher on the day, and the loss for Baltimore was given to Connor Greene. Connor Greene allowed 3 earned runs in .1 innings pitched. He was pulled in the 7th inning. He would pick up his 3rd blown save of the year, and with his loss, he's 1-1. In the Orioles batting lineup, their first baseman, Ryan Mountcastle, went 2 for 3 with 2 runs, and then also their shortstop, Richie Martin, would end up going 2 for 4. For the Boston Red Sox, the start was given to Nate Eovaldi. He allowed 3 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 8. The win would go to the Red Sox' second relief pitcher on the day, Hirokazu Sawamura. Sawamura would allow 2 earned runs in the 7th inning as he struck out 2. With this win, he is now 5-1 despite picking up his first blown save of the year. The save would end up going to the Red Sox closer for the day, Garrett Richards. Garrett Richards would allow no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out a batter. This would be his 3rd save of the year. And in the Red Sox batting lineup, their center fielder, Yadiel Hernandez, went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. Their right fielder, Hunter Renfroe, went 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs. Their all-star third baseman, Rafael Devers, went 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Their elite designated hitter, JD Martinez, would go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 27th home run of the season. With this win, the Boston Red Sox are 86-65. That is the 2nd best record in the American League East. They've won their last 5 games. games, which is tied with the Oakland Athletics for the best winning streak in the American League and the second best in all of baseball. The Red Sox have won 7 of their last 10, and they sit 6.5 games behind the American League East leading Tampa Bay Rays. Right now, they're holding on to that top American League wildcard spot, sitting 1 game ahead of the second place Toronto Blue Jays in that race. With this loss, the Baltimore Orioles are now 47-102. That is the worst record in all of baseball at the moment, as they've lost their last 3 games. They've lost 8 of their last 10, and they now trail the Tampa Bay Rays by 44.5 games in the division, the gap between the best and worst teams in the American League as well. The Orioles are one of 4 teams in the American League who have been eliminated from playoff contention at the moment. Jumping out to Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Reds hosted the defending World Series champs LA Dodgers. The Dodgers would get the best of the Reds, winning this one 8-5, scoring 6 of their 8 runs in the second and third innings. For the Cincinnati Reds in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Wade Miley. He allowed 6 earned runs in 3 innings pitched as he struck out 2. With this loss, he's 12-7. In the Reds batting lineup, their right fielder, Nick Castellanos, went 2 for 3 with an RBI and a run. Going into the Reds lineup, their pinch hitter, Joey Votto, would go 1 for 1 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 31st home run of the year. And then their pinch hitting left fielder, TJ Friedl, would end up going 2 for 2 with an RBI and 2 runs as he would hit his first home run of the season for Cincinnati. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, the win would go to their goated starting pitcher, Clayton Kershaw. He allowed 1 earned run and 3 hits in the first 5 innings of the game, striking out 8. With this win, Clayton Kershaw is 10-7 on the year. In the Dodgers batting lineup, their elite right fielder, Mookie Betts, went 2 for 4 with a run. Their elite shortstop, Corey Seager, would go 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs and a run as he hit his 10th home run of the season yesterday. Their center fielder, Chris Taylor, went 2 for 5 with 2 runs. And their left fielder, Gavin Lux, went 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run as he hit his 7th home run of the season. With this win, the Los Angeles Dodgers are now 96-54. That is the second best record in the MLB, but unluckily for them, it is the second best record in the National League. They are one of 3 teams that have secured a playoff spot in the National League playoff picture. They've won their last 2 games. They've won 8 of their last 10. At the moment, they are trailing the San Francisco Giants by a game in the division as they sit in the first spot in the National League wildcard picture, 16 games ahead of the second place St. Louis Cardinals, having comfortably secured one of the 3 spots of 5 possible spots for the National League playoff picture. With this loss, the Cincinnati Reds are now 77-73. That is the 3rd best record in the National League Central as they've lost their last 2 games. They've lost 7 of their last 10 as they trail the Milwaukee Brewers by 14.5 games in the division. They currently trail the St. Louis Cardinals by 3 games for that second National League wildcard spot, as the Reds are still the first team on the outside of the National League playoff picture looking in. Jumping out to Tampa Bay, the Tampa Bay Rays, the holders of the best record in the American League, hosted the Detroit Tigers, and the Tigers would beat the Rays 2-0 as they shut the team out, holding them to 5 hits as a team. For the Tampa Bay Rays, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Shane McClanahan. McClanahan would allow 1 earned run and off of 2 hits in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 7. With this loss, Shane McClanahan is 9-6. In the Rays batting lineup, the only player that had more than 1 hit was their all-star catcher, Mike Zunino, and he went 3 for 3. For the Detroit Tigers, the win was given to their starting pitcher, Willie Peralta. He allowed no earned runs off of 3 hits in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 3. The save was given to the Tigers closer for the day, Kyle Funkhauser. Funkhauser allowed no earned runs in the 9th inning, and with the save, he now has his first save of the year. In the Tigers batting lineup, nobody on the team would finish with more than 1 hit. Their left fielder Eric Haas would go 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 25th home run of the season. And then their catcher Dustin Garneau would go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 6th home run of the season for the Tigers. With this win, the Tigers are 72-78. That is the 3rd best record in the American League Central. They've won their last 2 games and they've won 7 of their last 10. At the moment, they trail the Chicago White Sox by 13.5 games in the division. And with this loss, the Tampa Bay Rays are now 92-58. That is still the best record in the American League East and the American League as a whole. They've lost their last 2 games, and they've lost 6 of their last 10 games. They currently sit 6.5 games ahead of the second place Boston Red Sox in the division. And right now they're holding on to that number 1 seed in the American League playoff picture as they sit ahead of the second seed Houston Astros, who are leading the West, and they sit ahead of the Chicago White Sox, who are holding the 3rd seed leading the Central. Jumping out to Miami, Florida, the Marlins hosted the Pittsburgh Pirates, and in a game that would end up going to the 10th inning, going into the 10th inning, the Miami Marlins would have to tie it at 4 thanks to a Brian De La Cruz single. At the top of the 10th, Ben Gamel's sacrifice fly would put the Pirates up 5-4, but then it would be a walk-off 2-run home run from Edwin Diaz to give the Marlins their 63rd win of the season. For the Pittsburgh Pirates in this matchup, the start was given to Max Kranick. Max Kranick would allow 3 earned runs off of 4 hits and 5 innings pitched as he struck out 6. The loss was given to the Pirates closer, Chad Kuhl. He allowed 2 runs as he didn't register a single out. This would be a second blown save of the season, and with this loss, he's 5-7 in the Pirates batting lineup. Their shortstop Kevin Newman would go 2-for-4 on the day. Their right fielder Cole Tucker went 2-for-3 with 3 runs on the day as well for the team. For the Miami Marlins in this matchup, the start went to Sandy Alcantara. He allowed 2 runs in the first 6 innings of the game, striking out 4. The win was given to the Marlins closer for the day, Stephen Okert. He allowed 1 run in the 10th inning, and with this win, he's 2-1. In the Marlins batting lineup, their center fielder, Brian De La Cruz, went 2-for-5 with an RBI. Their right fielder, Jesus Sanchez, went 2-for-4 with an RBI and 2 runs. Their first baseman, Edwin Diaz, went 2-for-4 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his 6th home run of the season. With this win, the Miami Marlins are 63-86. That is the 4th best record in the National League East, as they've won 5 of their last 10 games. They sit 15 games behind the Atlanta Braves in the division. They are one of 4 teams in the National League who have been eliminated from playoff contention. With this loss, the Pittsburgh Pirates are now 56-93. That is the worst record in the National League Central, as they've lost 4 of their last 10. They trailed the Milwaukee Brewers by 35 games in the division, as they are also one of the 4 teams in the National League who have been eliminated from playoff contention alongside the Marlins. Jumping out to Houston, the Houston Astros hosted the Arizona Diamondbacks, and in this interleague matchup, the Astros would beat the Diamondbacks 7-6 after scoring 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th to take the lead and get the win. They would tie it off of a 2-run home run from Jose Siri, and then a solo home run from Chas McCormick would be what it took for the Astros to pick up win number 88. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, the start would go to their elite starting pitcher, Zach Gallen. Gallen allowed 4 earned runs off of 5 hits and 6 innings pitched as he struck out 7. The loss was given to the Diamondbacks setup relief pitcher, Brandon Sittinger. Sittinger would allow 3 earned runs and .2 innings pitched as he was pulled in the middle of the 8th. This will be his 2nd blown save of the season, and with this loss, he's 0-1. In the Diamondbacks batting lineup, nobody on the team would finish with more than 1 hit. Their right fielder, Pavin Smith, would go 1-for-4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 11th home run of the season. For the Houston Astros, the start went to former American League Cy Young winner Zach Greinke. He allowed 5 earned runs and 4 innings pitched as he struck out 3. The win was given to the Astros' first relief pitcher, Peter Solomon, who took over the next 5 innings. He would allow 1 earned run in the 5th through 8th innings as he struck out 3 in that span. With this win, he's 1-0. The save would go to the Astros closer, Ryan Presley. Presley allowed no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out 3. With this save, he now is 25 on the year. In the Astros batting lineup, their shortstop Carlos Correa would go 2-for-4 with 3 RBIs and 3 runs. He would go on to hit his 24th home run of the season. He was the only player with a multi-hit game. With this win, the Houston Astros are 88-61. That is the best record in the American League West, as they've won 7 of their last 10. They currently sit 6 games ahead of the second place Oakland Athletics within their own division. They're holding on to the 2nd seed in the American League playoff picture, sitting behind the 1st seed Tampa Bay Rays and sitting ahead of the 3rd seed Chicago White Sox. With this loss, the Arizona Diamondbacks are now 48-101. That is the worst record in the National League West and the worst record in the National League as a whole. They've lost 7 of their last 10 games. They trailed the San Francisco Giants by 48.5 games in the division, which is also the gap between the best and worst teams in the National League. And the Arizona Diamondbacks are, because they have the worst record in the National League at this point of the season. They are one of 4 teams in the National League who have been eliminated from playoff contention. Jumping out to Kansas City, the Kansas City Royals hosted the Seattle Mariners. In this matchup, the Mariners would end up beating the Royals 7-1 as they scored 5 of their 7 in the first 3 innings. For Kansas City, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Jackson Kowar. Kowar would go on to allow 5 earned runs in the first 4 innings of the game, striking out 3. With this loss, Jackson Kowar is 0-4 on the year. In the Royals batting lineup, nobody on the team had more than 1 hit. For the Seattle Mariners in this matchup, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Logan Gilbert. He allowed 1 earned run off of 3 hits in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 5. With this win, he's 6-5 on the season. In the Mariners batting lineup, their first baseman, Ty France, went 3-4 with an RBI and a run. Their designated hitter, Mitch Haniger, went 1-4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 34th home run of the season. Their rookie center fielder, Jared Kelenic, would go 3-4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his 13th home run of the year. And then their third baseman for the day, Dylan Moore, would end up going 2-3 with an RBI and a run. With this win, the Seattle Mariners are now 80-69. That is the 3rd best record in the American League West. They've won 5 of their last 10 games as they trailed the Houston Astros by 8 games in the division. They trailed the Toronto Blue Jays for that 2nd American League wildcard spot by 4 games. They are the 3rd team on the outside looking in as they also trailed the New York Yankees and the Oakland Athletics. With this loss, the Kansas City Royals are 67-82. That is the 4th best record in the American League Central. They've lost 5 of their last 10 games as they trail the Chicago White Sox by 18 games in the division. They are one of 4 teams eliminated from contention in the American League at the moment. Jumping out to Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Brewers hosted the Chicago Cubs, and the Cubs would end up beating the Brewers 6-4, scoring 5 of their 6 runs in the top of the 8th inning. For the Milwaukee Brewers, the start went to Eric Lauer. Lauer would allow 1 earned run and only 1 hit in 5.1 innings pitched. The only hit he gave up in that span was a home run. And he would also strike out 6 on the day. The loss for Milwaukee would go to their 3rd relief pitcher, Brad Boxberger. Boxberger would allow 3 earned runs without registering a single out on the day. He would get pulled in the 7th, and he would pick up his 4th blown save of the season. And with this loss, he's 5-4. In the Brewers he would get pulled in the 8th. But in the Brewers batting lineup, nobody on the team would finish with more than 1 hit. That will be attributed to great pitching from Chicago. For the Chicago Cubs, the start was given to Keegan Thompson. He allowed no earned runs and only 1 hit in the first 2 innings of the game. The win for the Cubs went to their 2nd relief pitcher, Adam Morgan. Morgan allowed no earned runs in the 7th inning, and with this win, he's now 1-0 on the season, and the save would go to the Cubs closer, Michael Rucker. Rucker allowed no earned runs in 0.1 inning pitch. He just needed 1 out to finish out the game, and he picked up his first save of the season. In the Cubs batting lineup, their 3rd baseman, Matt Duffy, went 2-4 with an RBI and a run. Their first baseman, Frank Schwindel, went 2-5 with an RBI and a run for the team as well. With this win, the Chicago Cubs are now 67-83. That is the 4th best record in the National League Central. They've won 3 of their last 10. They trail the Milwaukee Brewers by 24.5 games in the division. And they are and as of right now, the Chicago Cubs are still alive in their playoff hunt. With this loss, the Milwaukee Brewers are now 91-58. That is the best record in the National League Central as they've only lost 3 of their last 10. They now they sit 11.5 games ahead of the 2nd place St. Louis Cardinals in the division. They are one of 3 teams that have clinched a playoff spot in the National League, and they are currently holding on to that 2nd National League playoff picture as they sit right behind the 1st seed San Francisco Giants, who are leading the West, and they are sitting ahead of the 3rd seed Atlanta Braves, who are currently sitting on top the East. Jumping out to St. Louis, the St. Louis Cardinals were able to host the San Diego Padres and they in that battle for that second National League wildcard spot. And the Cardinals were able to continue or extend their winning streak to 8, extending the longest active win streak in baseball right now. For the San Diego Padres, or first, before I get into this, the Cardinals will beat the Padres 8-7 in this matchup. For the Padres, the start and the loss were given to Jake Arrieta. He allowed 5 runs and 0.1 innings pitched as he would get pulled in the first inning. With this loss, he's now 5-14. In the Padres batting lineup, their elite third baseman Manny Machado went 2 for 4 with 2 runs. Their left fielder Tommy Pham went 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his 14th home run of the season. Their right fielder Will Myers went 2 for 4 with an RBI for himself. And then for the St. Louis Cardinals, the start went to J.A. Happ. He allowed 3 earned runs and 4 innings pitched as he struck out 2 batters. The win would go to the Cardinals' first relief pitcher on the day, Alex Reyes. He allowed 1 earned run as he pitched 2 innings, striking out a batter in the 5th and 6th innings combined. And with this win, he's now 9-8 on the season. The save would go to the Cardinals' closer, Giovanni Gallegos. Gallegos would allow no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out 2. This would be his 10th save of the year. In the Cardinals batting lineup, their elite first baseman, Paul Goldschmidt, went 2 for 4 with 2 runs. Their elite third baseman, Nolan Arenado, went 2 for 4 with a run for himself. And their shortstop, Edmundo Sosa, went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. With this win, the St. Louis Cardinals are now 79-69. That is the second best record in the National League Central. They've won their last 8 games. Like I just said, that is the longest active win streak in baseball. They have also gone on to win 9 of their last 10 games. They sit 11.5 games behind the second place Milwaukee. They sit 11.5 games behind the National Central leading Milwaukee Brewers. And right now they're holding on to that second National League wildcard spot at the moment. They sit 16 games behind the LA Dodgers, who have already secured that first spot in the National League wildcard at the very least. And they sit 3 games ahead of the Cincinnati Reds, who are the first team on the outside of the National League wildcard picture looking in. With this loss, the San Diego Padres are now 76-73. That is the third best record in the National League West. They've lost their last 3 games, and they've lost 8 of their last 10. They sit 20.5 games behind the San Francisco Giants in the division, as they currently sit 3.5 games behind the St. Louis Cardinals for that second National League wildcard spot. They are tied with the Philadelphia Phillies with the second best record on the outside of the wildcard picture looking in, as they trail the Cincinnati Reds as well as the Phillies, or as well as sitting alongside the Phillies. Jumping up to Dallas, the Texas Rangers hosted the AL Central leading Chicago White Sox. The White Sox would end up beating the Rangers 7-2 after scoring 5 runs in the 4th inning. For the Texas Rangers in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Jordan Lyles. He allowed 5 earned runs in 3.2 innings pitched as he struck out 3. With this loss, he's 9-12. In the Rangers batting lineup, their shortstop, Isaiah Kiner Falefa, will go 2 for 3 with an RBI and a run. Additionally, their left fielder, Willie Calhoun, went 2 for 4. For the Chicago White Sox, the win went to their starting pitcher, Lucas Giolito. He allowed 1 earned run off of 6 hits and 5.1 innings pitched as he struck out 4. With this win, he's now 10-9. In the White Sox batting lineup, their shortstop, Tim Anderson, went 2 for 5 with a run. Their elite designated hitter, Jose Abreu, went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. Their center fielder, Leury Garcia, went 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run for himself. With this win, the Chicago White Sox are 85-64. That is the best record in the American League Central, as they've won 5 of their last 10. They sit 11 games ahead of the second place Cleveland Indians in the division. Right now, they're holding on to that 3rd seed in the American League playoff picture, sitting behind the 1st seed Tampa Bay Rays out east and sitting behind the 2nd seed Houston Astros out west. With this loss, the Texas Rangers are now 55-94. That is the worst record in the American League West. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games as they trail the Houston Astros by 33 games in the division. They are one of 4 teams that have been eliminated from American League playoff contention. Jumping out to the Bay Area, the San Francisco Giants hosted the NL East leading Atlanta Braves, and the Braves would beat the Giants 3-0. All 3 of their runs would be scored in the top of the 7th off of a home run from Adam Duvall and 1 from Eddie Rosario. Additionally, the Braves, Eddie Rosario will go on to hit for the cycle on the day. There only 4 cycles have been hit this season, and the last 2 of them have been hit by Atlanta Braves, as the one before him was hit by the one, the only reigning National League MVP, Freddie Freeman. For the San Francisco Giants in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Anthony DeSclafani. He allowed 2 earned runs off of 6 hits in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 6. With this loss, he's 12-7. In the Giants batting lineup, nobody on the team would finish with more than 1 hit. That would be attributed to great pitching from Atlanta. For the Braves, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Max Fried. He allowed no earned runs and 3 hits in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 5. With this win, he's 12-7. The save would go to the Braves closer, Will Smith, the former San Francisco Giant. He would allow no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out 2. With this save, he now has 33 on the year. In the Braves batting lineup, their right fielder, Jock Peterson, would end up going 2 for 5. Their center fielder, Adam Duvall, will go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his 36th home run of the season. Their left fielder, Eddie Rosario, will go 4 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he would go on a single. He hit his 17th double of the season, his 3rd triple of the season, and he hit his 12th home run of the season. So, of course, I imagine that if this isn't his first career cycle, that will be very impressive. I do not know. I don't know for a fact that this is his first, but if I would assume it is. With this win, the Atlanta Braves are now 77-70. That is the best record in the National League East, as they've now won only 4 of their last 10 games. They sit 2 games ahead of the second place Philadelphia Phillies in the division. And right now they're holding on to that 3rd seed in the National League playoff picture, sitting behind the West leading San Francisco Giants and the Central leading Milwaukee Brewers. With this loss, the San Francisco Giants are now 97-53. That is still the best record in all of baseball, as they've lost only 3 of their last 10 games. They sit a game ahead of the second place LA Dodgers in their division, who have the 2nd best record in all of baseball. But right now, the Giants are holding on to that 1 seed just by a game, and just right ahead of that 2nd seed Milwaukee Brewers organization, and they sit ahead of the 3rd seed Atlanta Braves, who are leading out east. Jumping out to Anaheim, the Los Angeles Angels hosted the Oakland Athletics, and the Athletics would end up beating the Angels 3-2 in the 10th inning, thanks to a sacrifice fly from Jed Lowry. For the Los Angeles Angels in this matchup, the start would go to their all-star starting pitcher, Shohei Ohtani. He allowed 2 earned runs in 8 innings pitched as he struck out 10. The loss would end up going to their closer for the day, Raisel Iglesias. He allowed 1 run in the 10th inning as he was unable to strike out a batter. With this loss, he's 7-5. In the Angels batting lineup, nobody on the team would finish with more than 1 hit. That will be attributed to great pitching from Oakland. For the A's, the start went to Frankie Montas. He allowed no earned runs and only 1 hit in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 7. The win will go to the A's closer for the day, Lou Trevino. Lou Trevino will go on to allow no earned runs in 1.2 innings pitched. He would finish the 9th and 10th inning for Oakland. With this win, he's now 6-7. In the A's batting lineup, their elite 3rd baseman Matt Chapman went 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 26th home run of the season. He was the only player on the A's or on either team with a multi-hit game. With this win, the Oakland Athletics are now 82-67. That is the 2nd best record in the American League West. They've won their last 5 games, which is tied with the Boston Red Sox for the longest active win streak in the American League. They've won 7 of their last 10 games as they sit 6 games behind the Houston Astros in the division. And right now they trail the Toronto Blue Jays by 2 games for that 2nd American League wildcard spot. The Oakland A's are the 2nd team on the outside of the American League wildcard looking in, as they also trail the New York Yankees by half a game. With this loss, the Los Angeles Angels are now 72-77. That is the 4th best record in the American League West. They've lost their last 3 games, and they've lost 7 of their last 10. They trail the Houston Astros by 16 games in the division at the moment. Last but not least, jumping out to Queens, the New York Mets hosted the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Mets were able to beat the Phillies 3-2. The score was tied at 2 going into the bottom of the 7th, and it would be a solo home run from Jeff McNeil to give the Mets what they needed to pick up win number 73. For the Philadelphia Phillies in this matchup, the loss went to Kyle Gibson. He allowed 3 earned runs in 6.2 innings pitched as he struck out 9. With this loss, he's now 10-8. In the Phillies batting lineup, their shortstop Freddie Galvis went 2 for 4 with a run. Their second baseman Gene Segura went 2 for 4, and then their center fielder Matt Vierling would end up going 2 for 4 as well. For the New York Mets, the start went to Rich Hill. He allowed 2 earned runs in 4.2 innings pitched as he struck out 7. The win would go to the Mets setup relief pitcher for the day, Aaron Loop. He allowed no earned runs in 1.1 innings pitched as he would strike out 1. He would finish out the 7th and 8th innings for New York, and with his win, he's now 6-0. The save would go to the Mets closer, Edwin Diaz. He allowed no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out a batter. This would be his 30th save of the year. Their left fielder, Jeff McNeil, was the only player on the Mets with more than 1 hit. He went 2 for 3 with an RBI and 2 runs. He picked up his 7th home run of the year. With this win, the New York Mets are now 73-77. That is the 3rd best record in the National League East. They've won 3 of their last 10 as they trail the Atlanta Braves by 5.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Philadelphia Phillies are now 76-73. That is the 2nd best record in the National League East as they've lost 5 of their last 10. They trail the Atlanta Braves by 2 games in the division, and they sit 3.5 games behind the St. Louis Cardinals for that 2nd National League wildcard spot. They're the 2nd team on the outside looking in, tied with the Padres, and they sit just half a game behind the Cincinnati Reds. Just to give a sense of where the Phillies sit, that is what the MLB is looking like following yesterday's matchups, and of course, taking a look at what's going on in the NFL, because of course, yesterday was full of Week 2 action in the NFL. Starting in Tampa Bay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the reigning Super Bowl champions, took on the Atlanta Falcons, and they were able to pull off a 48-25 win after even scoring 20 points in the 4th quarter just to run away with that win. For the Atlanta Falcons, their elite starting quarterback, Matt Ryan, would throw for 300 yards, completing 35 of his 46 passes, throwing for 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. Their leading rusher, Mike Davis, had 38 yards on 9 carries. Their leading receiver was their rookie tight end, Kyle Pitts, as he had 73 yards off of 5 receptions. On the defensive side for Atlanta, Foyesade Alakun would lead the team in tackles. And for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were led by their goated starting quarterback, Tom Brady. He completed 24 of his 36 passes, throwing for 276 yards and 5 touchdowns. Through the air, their leading receiver was their elite wide receiver, Mike Evans. He had 75 yards on 5 receptions and 2 touchdowns. Their elite tight end, Rob Gronkowski, would finish with 39 yards on 4 receptions and 2 touchdowns for himself. And then on the defensive side of the ball for Tampa, their linebacker Carlton Davis their DB Carlton Davis would end up with 9 tackles on the day. He would actually go on to lead the team. Levante David had 8 tackles for himself, and Mike Edwards would end up with 2 pick sixes for the team. And that would, of course, go along with his 4 tackles for the day as he would go on to have a virtuoso defensive performance. With this win, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now 2-0 to start their season. With this loss, the Atlanta Falcons are now 0-2. Jumping out to Charlotte, the Carolina Panthers hosted their division rivals, the New Orleans Saints. In this matchup, the Saints would only get to score their touchdown in the end as the Panthers virtually dominated this entire game. For the New Orleans Saints, their quarterback, Jameis Winston, would end up throwing for 111 yards and 2 picks. He also ran for 19 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He only had 130 yards of offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Demario Davis would lead the way as he had 12 tackles for the team. Malcolm Roach would end up with an interception for himself as he had 2 tackles. For the Carolina Panthers, they were led by their newest starting quarterback, Sam Darnold. He would throw for 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick, as he also had 7 yards on the ground. Their elite running back, Christian McCaffrey, had 72 yards on 24 carries and a touchdown. He also had 65 yards off of 5 receptions through the air. That would go on to give him a total of 137 yards of offense and a touchdown, not to mention DJ Moore, their leading receiver, had 79 yards on 8 receptions and a touchdown. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Hassan Reddick would finish with a sack and a half as the team finished with 4. Justin Burris and J.C. Horn would go on to take the 2 interceptions for the team. And with this win, the Carolina Panthers are 2-0 to start their season, as the New Orleans Saints are now 1-1 to start theirs. Jumping out to Chicago, the Chicago Bears hosted the Cincinnati Bengals, and in this matchup, they would end up with the 20-17 win. For the Cincinnati Bengals in this matchup, or this game, just looking into how this game fared, this game would go down to Cincinnati. The Cincinnati would score 2 touchdowns at the very end to make it a lot closer of a game than it was initially. And Andy Dalton would Andy Dalton and Justin Fields would share snaps as the Bears were able to take home this win. For the Bengals in this matchup, their former number 1 overall pick from the 2019 NFL Draft, 2020 NFL Draft, Joe Burrow would end up going for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. Their only rusher on the day, Joe Mixon, had 69 yards. He also had 2 yards through the air. Their leading receiver, Tyler Boyd, had 73 yards on 7 receptions. There on the defensive side of the ball, Logan Wilson had 9 tackles on the day, leading the team. Trey Hendrickson had a sack and a half, as he had 3 tackles on the day for the team. Logan Wilson, in addition to leading the team in tackles, would go on to finish with an interception for the day. For the Chicago Bears, their elite young starting quarterback, Justin Fields, would end up completing 6 of his 13 passes for 60 yards and an interception. He also ran for 31 yards on 10 carries, so he had 91 total yards of offense this matchup. Their other quarterback, Andy Dalton, threw for 56 yards as he threw for a touchdown. He also ran for 25 yards, so that would give him a total of 81 yards of offense. Their leading rusher, David Montgomery, had 61 yards on the ground and 18 through the air, so that's 79 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Darnell Mooney, had 66 yards on 6 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, Roquan Smith led the team in tackles. He had 8 tackles, and he also will go on to finish with a sack. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Roquan Smith, in addition to leading the team in tackles and a sack, he would also go on to take home a 53-yard pick 6. And then Angelo Blackson and Jalen Johnson would round out the other 2 interceptions for Chicago. With this win, the Chicago Bears are now 1-1 to start their season, right now they are sitting on top of the NFC North, waiting for the Packers to play. And with this loss, the Cincinnati Bengals are now 1-1, virtually tied with the rest of their division, the AFC North. Speaking of the AFC North, the Cleveland Browns hosted the Houston Texans, and the Browns were able to beat the Texans 31-21. In the first, second, and fourth quarters, both teams would score a touchdown each. The difference would be the third quarter, where the Browns outscored the Texans 10-0. For the Texans in this matchup, their quarterback Tyrod Taylor would throw for 125 yards and a touchdown, and their other quarterback Davis Mills would throw for 102 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. On their leading receiver was Brandon Cooks, as he had 78 yards on 9 receptions for a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, their leading tackler would end up being Kamu Grugier-Hill, as he had 9 tackles on the day. One of them was a sack. Justin Reed would take home the only interception. On the Cleveland Browns side of things, their starting quarterback Baker Mayfield would throw for 213 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Their elite running back, Nick Chubb, would run for 95 yards off of 11 carries and a touchdown. He also had 3 yards through the air. That's 98 yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Demetric Felton, had 51 yards off 2 receptions and a touchdown for himself. On the defensive side of the ball, Malcolm Smith had 8 tackles, and he also would finish with an interception. With this win, the Cleveland Browns are now 1-1 to start their season. With this record, they are now sitting alongside, even with every other team in the AFC North, they all are 1-1. And with this loss, the Houston Texans are 1-1, still sitting on top of the AFC South alongside the Tennessee Titans. Jumping out to Indianapolis, the Indianapolis Colts hosted the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams would end up taking home a 27-24 win. This is another game that would virtually come down to the wire. The Rams would end up kicking the go-ahead field goal with 2.5 minutes left to give them their second win of the season to help them remain undefeated. For the Indianapolis Colts in this matchup, their starting quarterback, Carson Wentz, threw for 247 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He also ran for 37 yards on the day, which would go on to give him 284 yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Michael Pittman, had 123 yards on 8 receptions for the day. And for the Los Angeles Rams, their starting quarterback, Matt Stafford, would throw for 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Their leading rusher, Darrell Henderson, had 53 yards off 13 carries and a touchdown. He also had 29 yards through the air. That would be 82 yards of offense. And their leading receiver, Cooper Kupp, would finish with 163 yards off 9 receptions and 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of things, Taylor Rapp and Sebastian Joseph Day had 9 tackles. Also, their elite cornerback, Jalen Ramsey, had 3 tackles on the day as he would finish with an interception along with Troy Reeder. With this win, the LA Rams are now one of 3 teams in the NFC West who are now 2-0, sitting alongside the 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals. With this loss, the Indianapolis Colts are now 0-2, sitting on the bottom of the AFC South alongside the Jacksonville Jaguars. Speaking of the Jaguars hosted the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos would beat the Jaguars 23-13. In this matchup, the difference would be the middle quarters, where Denver would outscore Jacksonville 17-10 in the second and third quarters combined. For the Jaguars, their elite starting quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, would complete 14 of his 33 passes, throwing for 118 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He also ran for 21 yards, giving him 139 yards of offense. Their elite running back, James Robinson, would finish with 47 yards on 11 carries. He also had 17 yards on 3 receptions. That would give him 64 total yards of offense on the day. And then on the defensive side of things, their leading tackler, Andrew Wingard, had 8 tackles and a sack, one of the 3 that Jacksonville would finish with. For the Denver Broncos, their starting quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, would throw for 328 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading receiver, Courtland Sutton, would finish with 159 yards off of 9 receptions as well. And then on the defensive side, Kareem Jackson and Justin Sternad would finish with 6 tackles each. And Kareem Jackson, in addition to leading the team in tackles, would finish with an interception. With this win, the Denver Broncos are now 2-0 to start their season. They are tied with the Las Vegas Raiders for the best record in the AFC West at the moment. And with this loss, the Jacksonville Jaguars are 0-2. They are tied with the Indianapolis Colts for the worst record in the AFC South. Jumping out to Miami, the Miami Dolphins hosted the Buffalo Bills, and in this matchup, the Bills would end up beating the Dolphins 35-0. For the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa would have to leave with an injury, and Jacoby Brissett would take over, but they would not get a single score on the game on the Buffalo Bills defense, and that would be the story of that matchup. For Miami, their elite starting quarterback Tua Tagovailoa completed 1 of his 4 passes for 13 yards before he left, and then the backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett would throw for 169 yards and an interception. Their leading receiver, Jalen Waddle, had 48 yards on 6 receptions. And then on the defensive side of things for Miami, their elite corner, Xavier Howard, would finish with 2 tackles, and he would finish with an interception on the day. For the Buffalo Bills, their elite starting quarterback, Josh Allen, would throw for 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He would also run for 35 yards on the ground as he finished with 214 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Devin Singletary, finished with 82 yards off 13 carries and a touchdown. He also had 9 yards through the air. That's 91 yards of offense. Their elite wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, had 60 yards off 4 receptions and a touchdown additionally. And then on the defensive side of things, their elite corner, Tre'Davious White, would lead the team in tackles as he had 9 of them on the day. Greg Rousseau would finish with 5 tackles as he had 2 sacks for the team. And Levi Wallace would go on to finish with 2 tackles and an interception. With this win, the Buffalo Bills are now 1-1, tied with the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots for the best record in the AFC East. And the Dolphins with this loss are 1-1, tied with the Bills and the Patriots. Jumping out to New York, the New York Jets hosted the New England Patriots, and in this matchup, the Patriots would get the better of the Jets, winning this one 25-6. For the Jets in this matchup, their rookie quarterback, the second overall pick, Zach Wilson, would throw for 210 yards and 4 interceptions. Their leading receiver, Braxton Berrios, would finish with 73 yards on 7 receptions. On the defensive side of things, their leading tackler, C.J. Mosley, had 10 on the day. And then for the New England Patriots, their rookie starting quarterback, Mac Jones, would throw for 186 yards on the day. Their leading rusher, Damian Harris, had 62 yards on 16 carries and a touchdown. He also had 2 yards through the air. On the defensive side of things, Jawan Bentley would lead the team in tackles as he had 9 tackles on the day. And then J.C. Jackson would finish with 2 interceptions on the day along with his 3 tackles. With this win, the New England Patriots are now 1-1 to start their season. They are tied with the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins for the best record in the AFC East. And with this loss, the New York Jets now they're sitting at 0-2 with the sole worst record in the division. Jumping out to Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Eagles hosted the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers would end up beating the Eagles 17-11 after outscoring the Eagles 10-8 in the final quarter. For the Philadelphia Eagles in this matchup, their starting quarterback, Jalen Hurts, would throw for 190 yards, and he would run for 82 of them, and he ran for a touchdown. He would go on to finish with 272 total yards of offense and a touchdown in his name. Their leading receiver, Quez Watkins, had 117 yards on 2 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, Alex Singleton finished with 11 tackles. Eric Wilson and Anthony Harris would finish with 10 tackles each, as the team would not finish with a sack at all. And then for the San Francisco 49ers, their starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, would throw for 189 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 20 yards and an additional touchdown. He would finish with 209 total yards and 2 touchdowns of offense. Through the air, their leading receiver, Deebo Samuel, had 93 yards off 6 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, their leading tackler was Fred Warner. He would finish with 7 tackles on the day. And then their elite defensive end, Nick Bosa, would finish with 3 tackles and the only 2 sacks of the day in the game for either team. With this win, the San Francisco 49ers are now tied with the LA Rams and the Arizona Cardinals with the best record at the NFC West at 2-0. And with this loss, the Philadelphia Eagles are now 1-1. They are tied with the Washington football team and the Dallas Cowboys for the best record in the NFC East at the moment. Jumping out to Pittsburgh, within the same state, the Steelers hosted the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders would end up beating the Steelers 26-17 to remain undefeated. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, their elite starting quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, completed 27 of his 40 passes, throwing for 295 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Through the air, their leading receiver was Deontay Johnson, as he had 105 yards off of 9 receptions. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Robert Spillane would lead the team in tackles as he had 12. And the former Cleveland Brown, Joe Schobert, would finish with 10 tackles for himself. Their elite defensive end, TJ Watt, would finish with 4 tackles on the day as he finished with a sack. And then on the Las Vegas Raiders side of things, their quarterback, Derek Carr, would throw for 382 yards and 2 touchdowns, adding 9 yards on the ground, making it 391 for the day. Their leading receiver, Henry Ruggs III, would finish with 113 yards off of 5 receptions and a touchdown. And then on the defensive side of things for Las Vegas, the Denzel Perryman would lead the team in tackles as he had 12 of them on the day. Solomon Thomas would finish with 2 tackles on the day as his 2 tackles were sacks. And Trayvon Mullen Jr. would finish with 7 tackles on the day, 2 passes defensed, and an interception. With this win, the Las Vegas Raiders are now 2-0. They are tied with the Denver Broncos for the best record in the AFC West. And with this loss, the Pittsburgh Steelers are now 1-1. They are even with every team in their division, as the Ravens, the Browns, and the Bengals are all sitting at 1-1 at this very moment. Jumping out to Phoenix, the Arizona Cardinals took on the Minnesota Vikings, and they were able to beat the Vikings 34-33, thanks to a game-winning field goal they made with 4.5 minutes left in the game. For the Minnesota Vikings, their starting quarterback, Kirk Cousins, would throw for 244 yards and 3 touchdowns. He would also run for 35 yards on the ground, giving him 279 total yards of offense. Their elite running back, Dalvin Cook, would finish with 131 yards off of 22 carries. He had 17 yards through the air, giving him 148 total yards of offense. The Vikings' leading receiver, KJ Osborne, would finish with 91 yards off of 5 receptions and a touchdown. Their elite second-year wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, would finish with 65 yards off 6 receptions and a touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Eric Kendricks would finish with 11 tackles on the day. Daniil Hunter, their defensive end, would finish with 7 tackles and 3 sacks on the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Nick Vigil would finish with an interception and he would finish with a pick six, and that will go along with his 8 tackles for the day. And for the Arizona Cardinals, their elite starting quarterback, Kyler Murray, would complete 29 of his 36 passes. He would throw for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He also ran for 31 yards on the ground, and he would go on to finish with a touchdown. That's 431 total yards of offense and 4 touchdowns attributed to Kyler Murray. Their leading receiver, Rondale Moore, had 114 yards off of 7 receptions and a touchdown. Max Williams would finish with 94 yards off 7 receptions as well. Their elite wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, would finish with 54 yards off 4 receptions and a touchdown. Additionally, on the defensive side of things, Jalen Thompson would finish with 8 tackles as well as Isaiah Simmons. Their elite safety, Budda Baker, also tied for the team high with 8 tackles. And with this win, the Arizona Cardinals are 2-0 to start their season. They are tied with the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams for the best record in the NFC West. And with this loss, the Minnesota Vikings are 0-2. They are tied with they are at the moment sitting with the worst record in the NFC North as we wait for the Packers and the Detroit Lions to play. Jumping out to Los Angeles, the LA Chargers hosted the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys would end up beating the Chargers 20-17 off of a game-winning field goal in the final second by Greg the Leg Zuerlein from 56 yards out. For the LA Chargers, their elite starting quarterback, Justin Herbert, would complete 31 of his 41 passes, throwing for 338 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Their elite wide receiver, Keenan Allen, would lead the team in receiving. He had 108 yards off of 4 receptions. Mike Williams had 91 yards off of 7 receptions and a touchdown as well. Their leading rusher, Austin Eckler, had 54 yards off of 9 carries on the ground. He had 61 yards off of 9 receptions through the air, giving him 115 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of things, Nasir Adderley finished with 9 tackles on the day. Their elite safety, Derwin James, would finish with 7 tackles as he had half a sack as well. And then Asante Samuel Jr. would finish with an interception, and I would imagine that'll be his first career interception to date. And then on the Dallas Cowboys side of things, their starting quarterback, Dak Prescott, threw for 237 yards and a pick. Their leading rusher, Tony Pollard, had 109 yards off of 13 carries and a touchdown. He also had 31 yards through the air. That'll be 140 yards of offense. Their elite running back, Ezekiel Elliott, had 71 yards off 16 carries and a touchdown as he had 26 yards through the air. That is 97 yards of offense for him. The Cowboys' leading receiver, CeeDee Lamb, had 81 yards off of 8 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Smith would lead the team in tackles as he had 9. Vladen Vander Esch had 7 tackles and a sack on the day. DeMonte KZ and Trayvon Diggs would finish with the 2 interceptions on the day for Dallas. And with this win, the Dallas Cowboys are 1-1. They are tied with the Washington football team and the Philadelphia Eagles for the best record in the NFC East. With this loss, the Los Angeles Chargers are also 1-1. They are tied with the Kansas City Chiefs for the worst record in the AFC West at the moment. Jumping out to Seattle, the Seattle Seahawks hosted the Tennessee Titans. The Titans would end up beating the Seahawks 33-30 off of a game-winning field goal in overtime. For the Seattle Seahawks, their elite starting quarterback, Russell Wilson, would complete 22 of his 31 passes. He would throw for 343 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also added 16 yards on the ground, giving him 359 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Chris Carson, had 31 yards on the ground off 13 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. The Seahawks' leading receiver, Tyler Lockett, had 178 yards off of 8 receptions and a touchdown. Freddie Swain would finish with 95 yards off 5 receptions and a touchdown as well. On the defensive side of things, their elite linebacker, Bobby Wagner, finished with 20 tackles on the day, and he also had a sack with one of those tackles. Quandre Diggs had 10 tackles as well. And then on the Tennessee Titans side of things, their quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, threw for 347 yards. Their elite running back Derrick Henry ran for 182 yards off of 35 carries and 3 touchdowns on the day. He also had 55 yards through the air, which would combine for 237 total yards of offense. Their elite wide receiver Julio Jones would lead the team in receiving as he had 128 yards off of 6 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, Harold Landry III would finish with 7 tackles on the day. Danico Autry finished with 3 tackles as he had a sack and a half. And with this win, the Tennessee Titans are now 1-1 to start their season. They are tied with the Houston Texans for the best record in the AFC South. With this loss, the Seattle Seahawks are 1-1. That is the worst record in the NFC West at the moment. And then looking at the game that captivated the night last night as the Baltimore Ravens hosted the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 of the league's premier young African-American quarterbacks that are primed to take over the league for the next decade or two. In this matchup, the Baltimore Ravens would end up beating the Kansas City Chiefs at the very end of the game thanks to a game-winning touchdown run from Lamar Jackson. They failed the 2-point conversion twice in the fourth quarter, by the way, but they were still able to come away with the win after Clyde Edwards-Helaire would fumble on the goal line. For the Kansas City Chiefs, their elite starting quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, would complete 24 of his 31 passes. He would throw for 343 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. He would also run for 3 yards, so that's 346 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver was their elite tight end, Travis Kelce. He finished with 109 yards and 7 receptions for a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball for Kansas City, Anthony Hitchens would lead the team in tackles as he had 12. Daniel Sorensen had 10 tackles and a sack as well, as he had the only sack of the day for Kansas City. Their elite safety, Tyrann Mathieu, Tyrann Mathieu would finish with 6 tackles on the day. He would finish with 2 interceptions, as he would finish with one of his interceptions would be a pick 6 off of Lamar Jackson, a player that's won MVP. And then speaking of the player who's won MVP, the Baltimore Ravens elite starting quarterback, Lamar Jackson, would complete 18 of his 26 passes as he threw for 239 yards. He threw for a touchdown and 2 picks. He also ran for 107 yards off 16 carries and 2 touchdowns. This was his 4th career NFL game with at least 200 passing yards and at least 100 rushing yards. That's the most in NFL history. And combining it all, that is 346 total yards of offense and 3 interceptions. When on the receiving end, their leading receiver, Marquise Brown, had 113 yards off of 6 receptions and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball for Baltimore, Patrick Queen would lead the team in tackles. He had 8 tackles on the day, as Baltimore as a team could not register a sack. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Tavon Young would pick up the team's lone interception. With this win, the Baltimore Orioles are now 1-1. They are even with every other team in the AFC North, as they are all 1-1. With this loss, the Kansas City Chiefs are also 1-1. They are tied with the Los Angeles Chargers for the worst record in the AFC West at the moment. That is what the NFL is looking like from yesterday, as tonight's matchup will feature Green Bay, led by Aaron Rodgers, and the Detroit Lions. And then that's what's going on with the NFL. And taking a look at what's going on with football in Europe. Starting off in the Premier League, Manchester United was able to beat West Ham United 2-1. Their first goal will come from their elite Portuguese striker Cristiano Ronaldo to even the game. And then Jesse Lingard, who was on loan from Man U at West Ham last season, would end up scoring the 89th minute goal. And then David De Gea's save of a penalty kick in the 94th minute would secure the 3 points for Manchester United. With this win, Man U is now tied with Liverpool and Chelsea in points for the top of the table, but they only trailed them on goal differential, so they're sitting 3rd in the table. Chelsea was able to beat Tottenham Hotspur 3-0. Their first goal will come from Thiago Silva, their second from their elite French midfielder N'Golo Kante, and the third from their German defender Antonio Rudiger. With this win, Chelsea is sitting on the top of the table alongside Liverpool, as coincidentally all 5 of their match days have had equal scores, which is actually a wild feat. They're tied at the very top of the table. So that is what the Premier League is looking like. And at the same time, Man City, following their draw, now sit 5th in the table at the moment. And jumping out to see what's going on in La Liga, Real Madrid was able to beat Valencia as Vinicius Jr. and Karim Benzema's 2 goals in the 86th and 88th minute would secure their come-from-behind victory. At the moment, Real Madrid is sitting on top of La Liga as they sit 2 points ahead of second place Atletico Madrid, the reigning champs. Looking out in the Bundesliga, Borussia Dortmund was able to beat Union Berlin as Erling Haaland would score yet another brace in what is looking like a virtuoso season from him as well. Right now, Dortmund is sitting third in the Bundesliga as they sit behind Bayern and Wolfsburg, who are tied at the top. Dortmund sits only 1 point behind them. In Serie A, Juventus was able to draw with Milan as Alvaro Morata would score the first goal of the game for Juventus, and then Ante Rebic would score the only goal for AC Milan in the 76th minute. With this draw, Milan is now tied with Inter at the top of the table, and Juve is now sitting in the 18th spot with 2 draws and 2 losses in their first matches for the Serie A season. Not the best start. And then in Ligue 1, PSG was able to beat Lyon as Neymar's 66-minute penalty kick goal would tie the game. And then Mauro Icardi's goal in the 93rd minute would just save PSG from the bell after they subbed Messi off the field. With this win, PSG are now sitting on top of the Ligue 1 table as they sit 5 points ahead of second place Marseille, as Marseille is 1 game behind, or they have 1 less game played than PSG. And that is what soccer is looking like at the moment as we are transitioning through today's matchups. The only big matchup taking place today is between Barcelona and Granada. But with that said, that's everything that I got for you. I want to thank the MLB, FIFA, and NFL websites for giving me everything I needed for this episode. I want to apologize for all the names that I butchered because I plan on eventually getting them right. And with that said, today is Monday, September 20th. Once all of today's matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow on Tuesday, September 21st for another episode of The Elite. And until then, thanks once again for listening to this piece. I hope all is well and peace out. I'll catch you with another episode tomorrow.